Well, welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and today we're talking about money. Specifically, the Pokemon Company's money, because this article has been going around for a few days, and there's a lot of mixed reactions to it, mostly because of the title. Pokemon Company's net profit drops, still at 80 million last year. Now, people that just read the title and don't really understand how the Pokemon Company functions and where all that money goes, I've been seeing this as like people tweeting at me, commenting at me as ultimate doom and gloom. Like, the Pokemon Company is dead. Only 80 million. Pokemon should be like billions of dollars, right? And it's only pulling in 80 million last year. Is Pokemon Go that dead? Did Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Ultra suck that hard? Is Sun and Moon just dead in general? How's Pokemon Company only profiting 80 million? That just doesn't seem right. So we have this, according to a release in the Japanese government official gazette, saw a net profit of 80 million in its 20th fiscal year, which ended February 28th, 2018. So kind of ending this year because fiscal years are a little more offset with the calendar years, and people are just like, wow, Pokemon's dead. However, while this is a handsome number, it's a big drop when compared to the previous fiscal that ended in 145.6 million profit. Only 145.6? Again, was Sun and Moon actually that bad? But it's the highest in the company's history. That's because there's a huge difference between profit and actual net income, and the Pokemon Company's profit is higher than it has ever been. Well, 80 million, I mean, how much did it make after like Black and White or X and Y? Wasn't it like 100 million or something? Actually, it was almost nothing. So here we have this. For reference, here are the last 10 fiscal years net profits. 11th fiscal year, 10 million. There was actually a loss on the 12th fiscal, so 8 years ago. 12, 3, 16, 10, 18, 5.7 million. So the year that didn't have a main series Pokemon game, like after Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, like look at this, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire pushed that to 18.7 along with Pokemon X and Y, so doing pretty well overall. And then I think this is 16.8, or like this one looks a little higher because of the offset as we were transitioning to a global release or something. The numbers are a little funny, especially because it says fiscal year instead of the date, but then it went from a 5.7 million to a 145.6 million profit for 2016, and that's because Pokemon Go and Pokemon Sun and Moon. But as we can see right here, new game releases happened quite frequently, and that's where this article comes in. Pokemon Company's net profit jumps to 26 times, and then that's 143 million last year. So for this was reported in 2017 for Pokemon 2016. And there's a lot of reasons because of that. So remember the fiscal year for Pokemon, or for 2016, would end February 2017, which has a lot of Pokemon Go. Pretty much the first 6 months, the strongest portion of Pokemon Go really factors in that and just kind of shows the mobile market. That because Pokemon isn't developing for this and it's bringing in such insane amounts of money. Well, how insane? Pokemon Go passes 1.2 billion in revenue and 752 million downloads. This is June 30th, 2017. So 6 months after the fiscal report, I believe there was a stat where it was like it generated 0.8 million, like $800 million in the first, oh, here we go. So yeah, an app intelligence, it's a total revenue for 2016, we're at 950 million. So almost $1 billion for that first fiscal year in 2016, and then dropping off quite substantially. That the second half of the year, or a couple months after that, we're only getting a third of what it made in 6 months. So it kind of shows the decline of Pokemon Go, but how much money is on the table for Pokemon with these app games, because they cost less to develop. The freemium aspect does get in a lot of whales, you know, while the average person is paying $40 for a console game, if you actually get someone that's paying $60 to $100 a month on something like Pokemon Go, that's going to start to balance out. And even then, we have 752 million downloads, so if only 10% of that is spending $1, which does, like, 1 in 10 people spending $1 on Pokemon Go, 1 in 10 people spend $10 on Pokemon Go, and that's why the numbers are so crazy. So it just kind of shows, I think also because Niantic are the ones developing it, Niantic is more taking the bill on the development side, so this is pretty much just free money for the Pokemon Company since they licensed out their brand. And remember, the reason why the Pokemon Company's profits look a little low is because I believe this is because Nintendo has a 32% stake in the Pokemon Company, as well as other investors. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Pokemon Company only owns 60%, maybe even 55% of its actual company for those profits because of other investors and stuff like that. So that's going to really cut into the profit depending on how much money ends up being made. Well, here we go, another 2016 stat. The Pokemon Company reports a 2016 retail revenue of $3.3 billion. That is pretty insane. So let's see what we have. Pokemon Company, a joint company of Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures. Again, I don't really know if Creatures takes a share on that, and then that factors into it. There's really not too much known about how those financials break down, and one reason why we don't see too much details about this is I'm pretty sure that it says somewhere in one of these, give me 1 second to find it, because I remember reading somewhere that because they're a Japanese-based company, they don't have to disclose their specific earnings and all of their reports and stuff. Oh, there it is. In Japan, however, a lot of private companies that are structured in a certain way communicate some financials in the Kampo, the official government gazette, at regular intervals. So yeah, it's a private company, no need for the Pokemon Company to disclose financials every quarter or to ever discuss of their numbers publicly. So it's kind of like whenever that information comes out to the gazette, or they want to flex by being like, hey, guess what? Pokemon Go was so successful, 3.3 billion. Pokemon Sun and Moon, highest and fastest selling Pokemon games of all time, 3.3 billion. Pretty much everything the Pokemon Company said just ended in 3.3 billion. So that's going to be pretty crazy. That's the joint venture has revealed to license global its 2016 retail revenue. Now, this is another interesting aspect of the retail revenue, because is the 3.3 billion also factoring in with this, or we just talk about the Pokemon Company on the game side of things? And again, like when it looks like 3.3 billion is a lot of money, well, Nintendo's taking a third of that. So Nintendo takes 1 billion off the top. That's going to be left with 2 billion. Other investors, maybe 1.5 billion. And then the rest just goes into salaries. There's like 800 people that work for Game Freak, several hundred people that work for Creatures. I don't know how much they spend on research and development, but also like all these other things, and then just operating costs, expenses, and stuff like that. So the net income is going to be a lot different from the actual profit, even when you look at merchandise sales. You know, every merchandise, maybe it's a 50% profit that they're taking on each item sold or something like that, other operating expenses. So yeah, then it makes sense that the number kind of boils down to a net profit of 143 million on 3.3 billion in sales. So not the best numbers, but remember, they're always recycling money. A lot of their overall net isn't going into profit. They're not going to take that profit. They're going to put it back in the company and then put more money into development on things like Pokemon Let's Go, the 2019 Switch game. So what this says is that Pokemon Go gave the Pokemon Company an insane amount of money to start putting into more development, to start putting into bigger and better projects, and then even then they still have more profit than they've ever seen before. It's like, these are the crazy numbers. You know, you're seeing this Pokemon Company making billions and billions over the history, but even then it's only taken very, very small sums of profits over the last couple of years. So I think that does give a really interesting aspect. Oh yeah, here we go. Nintendo owns 10% of Creatures, developer affiliated with Pokemon Company. Since Creatures is a developer for it, Creatures did work on Pokemon Go, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, so they probably take some of those profits as well. Nintendo owns 32% voting rights according to Investment Bank. And then another really interesting one is, I don't know where the separation is. Side note, Japanese government gazette also revealed that the shopping subsidiary Pokemon Center, a separate but wholly owned entity, made about 1 million in net profit last fiscal. So that means just the shops alone, just the Pokemon Centers, are generating 1 million in profit for whatever company owns that, or like whatever subset of the Pokemon Company has that. And that's, again, the retail space. We have things like Tokyo. We have all these big stores in very expensive places. So after all that, they're still pulling in profit off of just Pokemon merchandise, which is covering for all that stuff. So the license of Pokemon is still very valuable, very strong. That's another thing I wonder. Like, is this like the 80 million number and this 143 million number? Is that just raw Pokemon income based off of what they're doing, and then this is the entire value of the license? Then whenever they license out anything, whenever they make products, whenever stuff like that happens, is that where that total income comes in? And then they're still actually making more profit than just the 143 for the entirety of Pokemon. Because when you think about it, even if the Pokemon Center was, say, $500,000 in net profit a couple of years ago, because I'd imagine with Pokemon Go, Pokemon Sun and Moon, that's going to really push for a high level of merchandise. I mean, it's still making 50% of the Pokemon Company's profit 3 years ago, 4 years ago, stuff like that. Even 10%, 5%. So I mean, that's still a really considerable amount, because it's just there generating revenue while also providing jobs, while also providing marketing, while also doing all these great things for the Pokemon Company. So yeah, 100 yen equals US 91. So the yen is weak to the dollar, which also could explain some of these numbers, that it looks a lot more for yen and stuff. So I think that's it. So this is the breakdown I really wanted to go into, because everyone's talking doom and gloom. Pokemon Go's dead, Let's Go's killing the company, no one's gonna buy the game, and now Pokemon's only making 80 million when they should be making billions. Actually, it's the other way around. Things could not look better for the Pokemon Company right now, and it looks like they're feeling very confident in Pokemon Let's Go. People saying like, oh, they're just making a cash grab game. Well, obviously the numbers don't really support it being a cash grab, and when you see the developers talk, when you see the presentation, they are all in on this game. They're trying to bring that Pokemon Go base into Pokemon gradually, and this is still a game made for Pokemon fans. Like, people look at Let's Go, they think it's only made for Pokemon Go fans. No, it's clearly the most core Pokemon experience that has ever been envisioned by the Game Freak and Pokemon Company. So I expect really good sales, and even then Nintendo Switch, $60 a game instead of $40 a game, offset by potentially higher development costs, but it does look like a fairly simple game. So we're going to see how that ends up playing out when it comes to the overall revenue, and see if we get the numbers for next year, and if anything changes, or what it means for Pokemon as a whole. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.